Tom Cotton is a Republican congressman from Arkansas, veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's joining us now, Congressman. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Wolf. Good to be here with you.
Why do you oppose the nomination of Chuck Hagel to be Defense Secretary?
Wolf, the president said that Chuck Hagel is the leader our troops deserve. I couldn't disagree any more strongly. Our troops deserve much better than a man who voted to send them to war when it was popular and then abandoned those very troops when it was unpopular. I would know, Wolf, I was one of those troops. I returned from Iraq in November of 2006 with my platoon from the 101st Airborne, just as Chuck Hagel was writing that we couldn't achieve victory in Iraq. The time for more troops had passed, and it was time to withdraw. But he didn't just oppose the surge, Wolf. He called it the most dangerous foreign policy blunder in this country's history since Vietnam. He delayed emergency funding for the troops. He voted to require a hasty withdrawal. He denied its success after 2 years when everyone recognizes it had succeeded. He even said that we were fighting a war for oil, which aligns him more closely with Code Pink than with President Obama. These are the reasons I think our troops deserve much better than Chuck Hagel.
Do you believe going to war in Iraq was the right decision 10 years ago?
I do believe it was the right decision. I believe that Chuck Hagel must have thought it was the right decision in 2002 when he voted for it. He's never stated...
Let me ask you, but you don't believe that Iraq had anything to do with al-Qaeda or the attack on 9/11?
The evidence is inconclusive there, but I know that Saddam Hussein was widely believed by all Western intelligence agencies, not just the United States, but Western European countries who were not in a rush to war, to have weapons of mass destruction. Our sanctions regime was beginning to crumble, and we wouldn't be able to contain Saddam Hussein if we hadn't confronted him at the time.
But I'm saying now, with hindsight, Congressman, he didn't have weapons of mass destruction. He didn't have any stockpiles of weapons of destruction. The 9/11 commissions, all the commissions point out he had nothing to do with the attack on 9/11, and he was being contained by the U.S. and the international community. Are you happy with what's going on in Iraq right now, 10 years later, looking at the situation, given the trillions that the United States spent, the thousands of American lives lost, the tens of thousands of Iraqi lives lost? The question is, do you believe the U.S. made the right decision to go to war in Iraq?
I do believe we made the right decision, Wolf. I believe that the war did not go very well in the early years, but President Bush, in his lowest political moment, had his finest hour when he recommitted to victory in 2006 and 2007, against all odds, against Chuck Hagel's own best counsel. And by the end of 2008, the surge has succeeded. Do I like the status of Iraq right now? Not as much as I would. I wish President Obama had kept a few more stay-behind troops there, as Generals Odierno and General Austin had recommended, but it was an honorable and noble cause, and we fought hard for victory. Chuck Hagel and none of the other opponents of the surge in 2006 and 2007 told me or my troops at the time that we couldn't achieve victory there.
Because when I see what's going on in Iraq right now, I see a regime, a government there, Nouri al-Maliki's government, getting increasingly close to Iran, forging a strategic alliance between the Shiites in Iraq, the Shiites in Iran, going after Iranian Sunnis, destroying so many of the democratic traditions all of us would like to see, with Kurdistan in the north basically moving into an independence. And the question that I keep asking, was it worth it? Was it worth it based on the current situation in Iraq right now, moving away from the U.S. toward Iran? Was the price that we paid in blood and treasure worth it looking back over these 10 years? I ask these questions only because Chuck Hagel has made it clear he doesn't think it was worth it, and you're saying it was worth it.
Wolf, I think those are all reasonable questions and also troublesome trends. We might not be seeing them today in 2013 if the president hadn't withdrawn all troops from Iraq last year. However, you have to make decisions when it comes to national security based on the information at hand. And in 2002, Chuck Hagel agreed with the vast majority of the United States senators that we should go to war in Iraq. In 2006 and 2007, when it was no longer popular, he disagreed that we should recommit ourselves to victory. Those are questions he's going to need to explain at his hearings, and I frankly found it very puzzling that neither the president nor Chuck Hagel addressed any of the points that have been raised by his critics. I admire Chuck Hagel's service. I admire the service of all of our veterans. But Vietnam veteran service alone cannot be the sole qualification for serving as Secretary of Defense. He needs to explain his dangerous views on Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas and his strange hostility towards Iran, and his view, contrary to Secretary of Defense Panetta, that the Department of Defense's budget is bloated and needs to be pared down, even after $500 billion of cuts over the last 4 years.
Congressman, those questions will certainly come up during extensive hearings before the Senate Armed Services Committee, and I'm sure all of those questions will be raised. Let's continue this conversation down the road. Like you, I watched what happened in Iraq up close, and I saw it unfold. I'm very, very worried right now, looking where the regime in Baghdad is moving. I'm very worried, and I ask myself a serious question: was it worth it in blood and treasure that was lost? We can continue this conversation, Congressman, down the road. Congressman Tom Cotton, thanks also, by the way, for your service in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know you had nothing to do with the policy. You went there as an honorable, patriotic American, and we welcome you to Washington now as a United States Congressman.
Thank you, Wolf. I appreciate it.
Let's